Coming to you from inside Walmart, where masks are required, but apparently pants are still optional. I'm RJ Balde, and this is the TRICHOMES Hash podcast. On this show, we feature conversations about trending cannabis topics. We also bring in industry insiders and influencers to discuss their point of view. In this episode, I'll be talking to Blue Quisquis about the work he does to promote education and intertribal support for Native American tribes in cannabis and hemp production. We'll also talk about the federal government's role, for better or worse, his cloud-based traceability platform, and much more. Without further ado, let's hash it out. Today, I am joined by Blue Quisquis. Blue has 20 years of experience in the casino industry and is now an advocate for tribal sovereignty and self-reliance in the legal cannabis and hemp industry. Welcome to the show, Blue.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. We were talking before we recorded here. You are coming to us virtually from San Diego. How has your quarantine been? How has your year been?
The year has been up and down. The quarantine's going pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm home based anyways. It's where my office is at. So it kind of worked out, and everything kind of slowed up. So gave me some time to really focus on the topics and what's really going on in the industry, and various things that are happening in the world. Everything's changing now, so it's kind of just it gives us some time to just kind of read and focus.
Yeah, totally. This has been certainly, there isn't much bright side when it comes to a global pandemic like this. But if we are to look for those pockets of sunshine somewhere or find that good somewhere, it has been a good opportunity for people to sort of reshift their focuses on what really matters. I think our modern world moves so quickly, and this was sort of the Earth's way to tell us to slow down, and
exactly.
Focus on what's important. Yeah, is that what you've been feeling?
Yeah, I mean, because again, being Native American, that's kind of our way, and we're connected to all that, and and that's what we kind of know that the world has been very sped up in the last thing, and again, it's the technology is very exciting, and the things we do in life, and it has advanced, but sometimes we need to take that pause and like they say, smell the roses. We need to take that pause, and you see a lot of things. There's a lot of pollution, even in the cannabis and hemp industry, they're looking at sustainable packaging. And so, I think it's this transition time into looking at, other things that we can do in the world.
Totally. That is interesting too, because cannabis product waste, like packaging waste from cannabis products is pretty gnarly. Packaging, people spend so much time focusing on packaging and making it look all pretty and aesthetically pleasing and stuff, but it ends up in the landfill at the end of the day. And it is great that more companies are focusing now on that sustainable packaging and that environmentally responsible packaging. But yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, because I've heard from so many cannabis companies, cannabis creators, and just people in the cannabis community who have voiced that waste from cannabis products is just rampant, really rampant.
Yeah, it is. And when you look at it, a lot of it is especially here in California, when you look at the regulations, again, that's my background, so I understand with the state, they're trying to again protect the consumers, children, all that, but again, with some of the packaging requirements, adds layers on layers, which becomes, again, at the end of the day, when you have multiple layers just to get to a small vape cartridges, all that all gets thrown away, and then the cart, and it's like there's better ways, and again, when you look at also hemp, that you can make a lot of products from hemp, it's like, well, hey, maybe this is, again, we have never had cannabis, we never had hemp, it's starting to fruition and come to life. So it's like, it's a great opportunity right now, like you say, since everybody's on downtime, get reading, get educated, learn about what it is, and how can we make it better in many ways. There's some great companies doing packaging, and it's just marvelous. And amazing what one plant can do and what it can do for so many things and so many people that it's like, well, why not, explore the option, see what we can come up with. Again, like I say, we're in the greatest country in the world, they say, and we can fly to the moon, we can do this. But I
Mhm.
think if we put our heads together and, and look at what can we do for the future for all of us and sustainability and then in different industries.
Yeah. I'm totally with you, man. One can only hope that we continue to explore the ways in which not only can the individuals prosper, but the collective people can maintain longevity and sustainability and remain to be here. You know what I mean? On this marble in floating in space. You know?
Yeah, that's what I say. And, with this whole pandemic, it's like you said, where do you find your pockets of sunshine or
Sure.
positivity? It's like, and you can look at lots of things, and it's just, because you've seen how much it has disrupted, even in, either retail or, the food and supply chain. There's a lot of things that disrupted, and it just shows us how vulnerable we are. And like I say, let's look at maybe different ways, because, there's a gone hemp is also food based too, with hemp hearts that are really
Oh yeah.
nutritious. And it's like, hey, there's other ways. So it's like it just kind of shined the light on, maybe we should look at other ways or other things that we can do to build that sustainable food supply. And
Mm.
because a lot of it was everybody was scared, and we don't really know what was going to happen. And again, with the pandemic, like you say, we don't really know globally. And again, some of us now that are millennials, we never really went through, like World War I and II and
Mm.
all these different things. And this is kind of like our time. And I looked at it and was like, well, let's try to find the positive. What can we do? How can we bring each other together to try to maybe learn about a new industry, a new revolution, a new product, a new food, something that we can all benefit from.
Yeah. Something positive, hopefully, that we can take away from this. Any bit of progress moving that needle toward sustainability is welcome, especially now more than ever. um, so I want to talk about your past experience, because I understand, have over 20 years, about 20 years now, of experience in the casino industry. You started as a chip runner at Pachanga in Temecula in 1999, and you have since moved from casino surveillance to taking leadership roles in Native American gaming commissions. So, what was the best part about that job as a chip runner? What was the worst part, and what did you take away from it? What did you learn from that?
Yeah, it's when I first actually started working, I would say in the actual industry. But the knowledge and stuff goes back to since I was, 4 years old. My dad's been in the Native American gaming industry for, over
Nice.
35 years or so. So
Wow.
it's like, I kind of grew up in it and knew that. And then when, turned 18, obviously applied. And
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, it was good and bad. I wouldn't say, but a lot of teaching lessons. I look at it, and some of the good industry, good memories of it was, you learn different things. I learned the games, learned, money management and how to, do customer service and how people want to be treated. And then also, I've experienced, the bad side, because being in a poker room, back then was poker players were really, I would say, maybe temperamental. It was really more of a man, I guess, type thing back then.
Sure.
And it was, they weren't really happy gamblers, I'd say. But you
Wow.
take it with a grain of salt, and things have evolved, and I've evolved from there and learning different things. So
Wow. Sounds kind of tense. Did you ever see like any scuffles or anything?
yeah, yeah, there was a few scuffles, and there was few, I had to take some because, they were really,
Ooh.
I guess, superstitious. Some of them when you gave them chips, because you would have to come and buy
Yeah.
poker chips. And then it's like if they would lose, some of them would be superstitious. Ah, you gave me bad chips. And, I don't want you. And
Oh,
then,
no
but,
way.
but on the flip side, if you gave them supposedly good chips and they won a lot of tournaments, they would come in and give you big tips and, hey, man, you were good. So it kind of had it its place, but
Yeah.
no, it was all good. It comes with it, I guess.
That's what's up, man. How long were you a chip runner and before you moved into surveillance?
I would say about a year there. I first
About a year.
started there, and then as a part of Valley View, where I went from there. It didn't open
Mm-hmm.
until 2001. So, but I was far working for the tribe and like security of when it was due to construction, and then moved in there and started learning about slots and the player tracking systems and helping set up the casino when I was doing construction. And then I went into surveillance and started learning, just as an operator, and kind of worked my way all the way up the ranks in different positions and learned different things and went to school. And it led me into applying for when our tribe opened up and
Mm-hmm.
for a commissioner spot, which is the regulatory body of the
Mm-hmm.
entire property,
Yeah.
and applied for there. And then it kind of just been in there ever since, and then led into cannabis and hemp.
Nice. Now, what based on your experience in the casino industry, how did that sort of in your mind prime you for entering the cannabis industry? Are any of the skill sets that you learned working in casinos, did they translate at all into the cannabis industry?
Yeah, yeah, tremendously. And yeah, so when I transferred into that, it was actually started when the Wilkinson memos and all the memos came out for cannabis and hemp.
Mm,
Was that discussion, and really, besides the whole, oh, it's in Schedule 1, everybody heard the same thing, don't do it,
yeah.
even states and blah blah blah. But when you got past that, it was really came down to, as we're talking about now, regulations. And
Mm,
when we were all discussing this at one time, I was like thinking to myself, we're sitting in a casino, which is a highly regulated industry. When you're involved
mm,
in it, I mean, we have a ton of regulations, not only federally, state, tribal. We have to follow a lot of laws and regulations. So
mm-hmm.
I was thinking, kind of dumbfounded, that we're sitting in a casino talking about how to regulate this. And it just seemed, how do we not know how to regulate when we've been doing it for the last, I don't know, over 30 years in gaming and with the
Right.
state and stuff. So I kind of started looking at different laws, and Colorado came online and different ones, and started to see the pieces come together of regulations, backgrounds, licensing, everything we were doing in the casino. So it made a nice transition over. And
Gotcha.
then when the following memo came with the Wilkinson memo about cannabis in Indian country,
Mm-hmm.
I started to see again because I started so young in the gaming industry, and when my dad was in there before Indian gaming was legal in California and throughout the
Mm,
country.
mm-hmm.
So we kind of went through that whole fighting of legal, not legal, all the way through. So it kind of was that same experience, and I kind of dawned on me. I was like, where did I experience this at? And I'm like, this was just like the gaming industry, what you're
Right.
talking about. So I
Yeah.
started going, wow, okay, let's see if this could play over, or anything I knew from, again, surveillance. They were talking about security, and
Right.
are they going to have big old fences around these grows and all these different things. But so I had the experience of you know the casino industry, how it could apply, and in some areas it was applying very nicely. So that's when I resigned my position and started to pursue to be a consultant, because a lot of the tribes were getting approached when that came out, and then everybody thought, well, since the reservations are, not really under state law,
Mm-hmm.
we can do whatever we want. Which that's not the case. We still have the federal government.
Right.
So, but a lot of companies were approaching tribes, saying the same thing as everybody heard: we can grow the best weed in the world,
Hmm.
and they wanted to, get these tribes and stuff. And it's like, well, there's a lot to it, like we say, before any state or anybody jumps in it, you got to know kind of the rules of the game before we get in. And they were pressuring a lot of tribes just to sign, we can grow weed, and you guys can do what you want. And I said, well, no, there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And so that's when I started to pursue consulting for tribes, and because my past experience in regulations and the laws and what tribes need to do, I said, well, this is the way you set up a regulatory kind of agency, in
Mm-hmm.
gaming.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? Pull from there that would work, that wouldn't work, and change the different laws and regulations and licensing requirements. But a lot of it kind of trends over nice. And now that we see
Yeah.
how California is doing in a lot of the other states, it's very lot similar to a lot of gaming tribes that what we do already, self regulation.
Wow, that's such a unique perspective because I hadn't really noticed the parallels in those two industries based on like where they started. So like you mentioned, like gaming used to not be a legal industry, and there wasn't much government oversight, and so it was a lot of self-regulation, which is, like you're saying, very similar to the way the cannabis industry is now. The cannabis industry is still, in the grand scheme of things, in its infancy. It's still a very volatile and an ever-changing landscape. And so, yeah, so shifting to your transition now into the cannabis industry 5 years ago, in an interview with Benzinga, you said, sort of along the same lines of what you explained there, that there is really no difference between a slot machine and a plant, and the cannabis plant, because they're both highly regulated, and you can build upon cannabis from other industries. So what does that mean? How does that present opportunities specifically for Native American tribes? And how are there ways in which, those, you might need to look out for opportunists who might be wanting to take advantage of you, like you said, pressuring tribes to sort of sign contracts and things like that?
Yeah, it's yeah, and that's why I say, I mean, I compared the two because when you look at gaming, they go off the activity. What is it we're conducting? And
Mm,
there's different classes: class two gaming, class three gaming, which everybody knows is like Vegas style gaming, craps,
sure,
and different forms. And again, there's different here in California. You can't really have craps and dice,
sure.
but there's different forms. But the slot machine, the way it was played, it was considered class three, and so when I looked at it, I go, okay, so it's not, I mean, yes, the machine itself, obviously, nobody can get it at their house, and there was different things, but it was the activity. So I looked at the same thing, when we were going through it, and it was, again, if you're touching the plant, it's considered, illegal, but if you're, ancillary and all those different things. So I said,
Hmm.
okay, well, if we're looking at those two, we're trying, we understand what the state and everybody's saying, trying to protect it from kids and everybody else,
Hmm.
whatnot, and what everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to have the activity. They're gambling or smoking cannabis, and everybody wants to feel free and doing what they want. So I looked at the two and thought, well, okay, it's virtually the same, and what could we build upon? And uh, that's when I went into and looking at how can we self-regulate and build upon that. And there's again a lot of different things of how we can utilize that game background, transportation, and various things. So
In comparing the two, comparing the cannabis industry to the casino industry, you, obviously, your experience and involvement in the gaming industry goes back again to when you were a child, and you saw your dad in the industry. How would you compare the two in their infancy? Which one comes off as more volatile to you, or are they similar?
I'd say that they're similar because
Hmm.
again, while ours was a little different in gaming, we were fighting for sovereignty rights, and
Of course.
and again, there's treaties, there's different things. But when you kind of
Hmm.
just look at the industry and what everybody's kind of saying, we felt that we had, the right and the opportunity to do it. And so does, the American citizens. What are we saying? Like, hey, we have the right to use medical cannabis, and
Hmm.
we should feel we have that right and a safe right. And
Hmm.
so that's why I kind of, they're really one and the same, because it kind of went the same route. But, um, each has their own, but I think that they're very similar, and that's how I kind of, from the past experience, when you kind of go through something that's similar, you reflect back, and that's what I did. It was like, kind of, hey, where what did I experience this at? And it was like, oh, okay, gaming. Oh, okay, I understand. Everybody, we need to pass a ballot emission. We need to
Mm,
regulation. So it was kind of like, okay, these are the different layers. So
yeah.
um, that's why I started to kind of really get involved with the states and seeing what they're doing. And it goes back to like the question you were asking earlier was, how do we not take advantage of people? And so
Yeah.
that was one of the things I was getting most called on, is when everybody was, because we didn't really have clear definition, because the memo was like, oh, here's the 8 categories, for enforcement. It was like, okay, does that mean if I follow that, you're not going to enforce, or does that
Right.
mean what? So with that, it was like learning the regulations, and then hearing different companies approach, and hearing tribes call me going, hey, I have this person here, or they said they can do regs when we brought it up. And that's where learning from all the different states and certain things, and that's where I relate to tribes, and told them that no matter who approaches you, do your due diligence. Ask for their resume. Ask if they said they have done cannabis, or they have done hemp, or they have done tribal regulations.
Hmm.
Do your due diligence. Ask them what projects have you done. Do you
Yeah.
have any letters of recommendation? How long you've been in the cannabis industry? Any partners that they bring, because there's a lot of people, that just like the CBD world, when you see an opportunity, a lot of people
Phew.
jump on it. And
Yeah.
that's what we have right now. There's a lot of either companies that are non-tribal that try to get a tribal person on there to say, hey, now we're, tribal consultants, because they may know regulations, or they may did it for a
Oh,
state, or vice versa. And it's like, yeah, they may know how to do it, but again, when you're dealing with the tribe, you're not just dealing with one person or a governor. You're dealing with the entire nation,
right.
because it affects all of us and one. And again, like we always say and believe, that no matter what we do, it's the next generation and our children who inherit the decisions we make today.
Right.
So that's why I kind of went in and say, these are just some of the things you have to ask and know, and and then you'll see from that if they are qualified enough to meet that. And again, there's many people out there that are qualified. So it's
Hmm.
just really trying to do the due diligence, as we do now in cannabis. I'm sure you've heard it time, with different growers, or different companies have gone down now for
Mm.
bad business deals. So it's like,
Hmm.
it happens everywhere. We just have to, again, come together as a community and, as an industry,
Yeah.
and try to eliminate some of that and get the right people out there. And that's why if I, come across companies that, offer products or different things, I try to promote them and, make contact with them. So if, a tribe's looking for a specific thing, maybe it's an extraction machine. It's like, okay, well, again, when you just can't Google search it, because you'll come up with everything, and it's like, well,
Right.
which one is the best, which one
Yeah.
isn't,
Who's
who
just
says
paying
what.
to be on the first page? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in the same Benzinga article, I read that apparently some tribes are running into issues where they will lease their land to renters, and then that land will come back just riddled with chemicals, and the soil will be all messed up and everything. Have you experienced or seen any of that in the consulting work that you're doing with other tribes? Have they run into that problem?
Yeah. I've talked to a few that have called, and again, because when you're in a tribal community as ourselves, we're very close. So it doesn't matter that I'm here in California versus somebody who's in Florida, New York, or
Sure.
in Canada. Again,
Yeah.
not many know that there's over 573 nations in
Hmm.
United States, and over 634 in Canada. So we have, like we say, we're just all one people.
Hmm.
So we get calls, and I've gotten calls with different questions. Like, one tribe was partnered with a grower, and they didn't have their regulatory set up yet, and they were
Mm.
already pursuing going to start putting in plants, again, because they were going and saying, hey, the seasons are coming up, we got to get in the ground. And it's like, they were asking, can we do that? And it's like, no, you have to set up the regulatory structure first, and then how are you going to do that? Some were that they had some regulations, but it wasn't tight enough and secure enough that some of the growers were pouring some of the water and different things outside the back. But
Mm.
those are when you know have those issues. It's like, well, how do you address them? Did you pass environmental regulations or inspections?
Yeah.
Did you in your regulations? Did you allow your regulatory commissioners to inspect and go through and audit and different things? And again, what chemicals did you approve, pesticides, all these different things? Is because when you look at the state, we're the exact same thing. Each tribe has to do what a state is doing right now. Packaging requirements, track and trace, everything that you can see within the state, tribes have to do the same.
Hmm.
Just a little bit different,
Right.
because again, we have tribal laws, federal laws, and different things that affect us different than states. So
Right.
um, you know yeah, when you get called like that, it's pretty heartening, that you have to go. And it's, again, who's left with the mess, because yeah, you can,
Mm.
like anybody, even in the state, you can evict them out, you can take away their license, you can suspend it, they could be done. But again, who has to deal with the recourse? Usually, if the state, if you found somebody pouring pesticide, herbicide down the drain or something in these grow operations, um, who has to deal with it once their license are pulled? It's the state. The community has to deal with it,
Mhm.
environmental impact. So it's the same thing with the tribes. We have to deal with that issue. And it's like, I try to tell them before you get there, think of these issues, think of the hard questions of situations that could come up and how do we prevent against that.
Yeah.
And again, knowing what to do, again, like I say, if you go to a grower, yes, everybody has, again, you can get a room full of growers and everybody's going to say something different or have a different technique. Uh, but again, like I say, it's doing your due diligence of asking, well, where is this company from? What's their background? What are even their mission and their morals and integrity of them as a company? Do they believe
Right.
in sustainability?
Right.
Do they believe in organic or not? Or do they just believe, hey, just get it in and get it out?
Totally.
So
And of course, obviously, uh, going beyond, so many companies say that they support sustainable efforts or say that, they're dedicating a large portion of their company or business, or they have a whole team based on sustainability and environmentality and things like that. But it's one thing to say that and to have a section of it on your website, and then it's a whole nother thing to actually be doing that, you know?
yeah, exactly. And that's why I say it's like, and those are the people we need, that are actually wanting to do it and are trying to do it. But you run into, like that, the regulations, you run into things that maybe you go, well, man, do I really got to package it in two different things, or do I really have to use this plastic tube? It's like, and that's where I say, we need to just have that open discussion and dialogue, and that's where the state and the regulators need to have that open minded. Like, that's what I tell tribes. It's like we all want it to work together, and we have to make it work together. You're
Yeah.
trying to achieve one thing, we're trying to achieve one thing, but believe we discuss and say, well, what is it you're trying to do? Oh, okay, so you're trying to eliminate the waste, the pollution, or your company's belief in this. And it's kind of hard, yeah, like you say, if you have a company that's their moral, that's their belief of sustainable or organic practices or non-pollution, trying to get back. But
Mhm.
when you jump into an industry that goes against that or makes you have more than what you should, or it's something you should not use, or again, if there's not a company out there that's making that.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, yeah, I want to do vapes. But before you do that, it's like, well, is there any way? Because again, after that vape cartridges, what do we do with it? Are you going to have a
Right.
recycling program? Or are you just going to just leave it? Or what
Right.
material are you using? Are you going to use wood? Or, try to do something to live to that.
Yeah. Those vape cartridges, man, those are the new cigarette butts, but the only problem is they're like way worse. Like depending on again what you say, what's in them. Um yeah, they pile up, they could be super harmful to the environment. I love me a good vape cartridge, especially, you know, when you're around people and you don't want to you don't want your perfume to be necessarily filling the space.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's the same thing with me. Now and then, yeah, you enjoy a good vape, or, again, and there's, edibles. I'm into edibles and teas, and
Mm.
yeah, but it's the same thing. I try to, there's some tea companies out there that, are, organic, or,
Mhm.
my biggest thing is because I'm plant-based vegan, that there's not a lot of edibles that are,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
when somebody like that tries to, I look for and go, okay, what do they support? Obviously there's a lot that isn't. And then there are some companies that are. And, I try to support them because a lot of them, I can see their packaging, they're trying to use less
Mhm.
packaging, more sustainable. They're obviously uh, they're using fruit, organic, non-sugar. So there's things
Mm.
that, I look and go, wow, you're really trying to do it. But,
Mhm.
you know, it's just kind of like you say, it's hard when you try to do something and you don't have the full support of an emerging industry.
Oh, totally, totally. And yeah, it's so important to do that background work, especially with companies in the cannabis industry where, it centers around something that you're putting in your body. So you really want to make sure that the companies that you're purchasing these things from, that you're putting in your body, are coming from, don't also have things that might harm you. Uh, um,
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like myself again, and because I thought about it, it was like, well, okay, if I'm vegan, it's kind of like I don't want no animal byproduct, but
mm-hmm,
again, somebody might be allergic to peanuts,
mm-hmm.
different things, and it's like, that's a good segue into again what I do in my technology company is
Yeah.
because an article just came out in Canada about, I think it was Aurora Cannabis or one of these large companies
Mm-hmm.
about on their package said one thing, but their content, they were showing that it was higher in cannabinoids and
Yep.
THC, and then obviously they got busted and it wasn't. And I
Uh-huh.
go, well, that's exactly it right there.
Yeah.
You're trusting and believing and hoping that it is. I trust that they said no, gelatin, no egg or anything else. But when you see these type of reports and articles come out, you kind of start second guessing, going,
Mm-hmm.
again, is there any regulations against that? Or again, there's lawsuits that could come about. You think of all these different things of when you see these, and these are pretty large companies, and I'm going, wow, they would, you'd really do that for what reason? I guess it would be,
Right.
I don't know why you would do it, when you would go, well, that's just this bad on not only the company but again the industry, because not
Yeah.
everybody supports it and not everybody understands it. So it's like,
Yeah.
and I just always say, every time we see a bad actor do something, even in tribal cannabis or
Mm.
wherever it's at, I always say, you make it harder for us that are really trying to
Yes.
move this forward in a legitimate way, in a sustainable way, and make it
Yes.
for all. And it's like that makes it a lot harder for us, because then we get the, because all these, like they say, bad news travels faster than good news.
Mm-hmm. True that, man. True that. That is very true. Now, you had just alluded to it. You're the company that you've started, because speaking of this idea of doing your due diligence, you've said that the creation of certification and compliance associations is crucial, which led you to the founding of the cloud-based traceability platform Syncit. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's
can you,
definitely it.
yeah, can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, it's yeah, I have it sync it, and the IT. Everybody always says information technology, but it's actually for interactive technology, because
Okay.
that's the whole approach we're doing. It's a cloud-based traceability platform for authentication, track and trace, consumer loyalty,
Hmm.
supply chain security, marketing. So it's utilized off our cloud-based platform that uh, places a QR code on each individual
Hmm.
product, and what it does from there is it makes each individual product unique, because each code is unique. So we
Sure.
have one that's again, like here in California, like I say, bad news travels faster than good news. And again, here in California, with counterfeit products, just what was it,
Mm-hmm.
like a year or so ago, that about the whole vape epidemic, vape gate or whatever
Yeah.
it was. It was like, kind of, again, like we say, when you try to legitimize an industry and you get bad actors, what does everybody say? Oh, it's all vapes. We don't care who you are. You're still trying to sell the same thing. And it's like,
Yep.
how do we, you know, put that in there to say we are not those people?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why with this, we have a service that's the cannabis brand protection, and it stops fake products from anybody mimicking your product, because you can go on Alibaba right now, any website, you can Google it, and you can find everybody's packaging,
Hmm.
identical to it. So how do you really determine? Well, this is where our technology comes in. You can't counterfeit our code, and what it does is you can scan it as a consumer, and if it is counterfeit good, it will notify you right there that this product is no good, so
Oh
you can
wow.
not buy it. Again, with
Wow.
our system, and as those scans come in that legitimate products aren't, that's how in our system we'll start to recognize invalid scans. So
Hmm.
we'll start seeing it, like in Arizona or across the United States. Actually, it does across the globe. So if somebody would counterfeit it and be scanning it, it'd be coming up as an invalid product, even though they might not buy it and walk away. But on our end, we'll be able to see it and start pinpointing and going, hey, why are we here? Let's look into, maybe we're getting counterfeit goods in this place. So
Wow.
that's one way they can utilize it to, combat that and
Yeah.
combat the illicit trade and counterfeiting your good. And again, it goes into, with that, you're actually promoting safeguarding products.
Right.
You can attach a lab report to that, which will go into, like, again, like the one in Canada, you can actually verify the lab report, see what the cannabinoid contents are, because again, it's derived from a third party. So even though the
Mm.
label might say, 20 milligrams of THC, but if you scanned it, you read the lab report, it's right there. It's from a third party source. So therefore you go, oh, okay, it's all legitimate. It's, again, if it was not, and you've seen something different on the lab report, you can obviously report that to the BCC or wherever it goes
Mm-hmm.
from there.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the way that, the consumers and brands can come together and promote their product, and promote that, like you said, sustainability, if you're using it for that. And again, the code could be used for whatever you want it, if you are about brand protection, or you can
Mm-hmm.
use it to drive into consumer engagement. Because at the end of the day, it's all about, the more product you can move, well, the more your company's going to grow.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, if you don't have some way to protect your brand from counterfeit, like
Right.
you say, bad news travels faster. What if someone gets a hold of your product, counterfeits it? You don't know that it's maybe in Florida and you're only in California, and that next you have a lawsuit, or someone starts bashing your company on social media. How do you try to recover from that? Well, this is a way that you can engage consumers and have a two-way dialogue through your product. So that's where we come up with the
Wow.
interactive technology that, as the consumer scans it, once you verify it's a good product, now you can engage them. You can sign up to a rewards program. You can do
Hmm.
raffles, rewards. You can, there's so much you can do with it, and it's fully customizable to what the brand wants to do.
Wow. That is such a useful tool to have. Yeah, that would I think provide so much clarity and reassurance to a lot of not only cannabis companies but consumers and patients as well.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, that's where we kind of looked at it, was, how do we bridge that gap? Just like, how do we
Mm-hmm.
bridge the gap between businesses and regulatory bodies like the state?
Mm-hmm.
If that relationship is good, and we have something that works, that allows all of us to grow, then how do we grow? And then I looked at the consumer side. So that's why I say it's very tailored to the sense of, it's like anybody. Hey, when we're only go to Coke or Burger King, or we have our brands that we like you said, a good
Mm-hmm.
vape. Well, yes, there's 100 vapes out there, but when you like the brand you like, or you find the one you do, and you want that same experience, you look for it. Well, how do I look for it? How do I want it? So here's a way that companies can use it to tailor and modify their consumer engagement right in the hands, because
Yeah.
again, everybody uses their mobile phone. This is a way now, once you scan it, you can actually sign up, and if the consumer decides to sign up, now you have a two-way dialogue with them. Now you can send them based off, oh, I see that you like this certain vape. Well, now I can
Oh.
send you promotions. I can write to your phone without, again, because you're seeing a lot of the things in the, like you said, in infancy
Uh-huh.
changing. Now there's, again, there's a webinar earlier today I'll be on with Omar Figueroa, who's an attorney out here in California, which is
Uh-huh.
on top of it, and he's phenomenal. And I've spoke with him, at conferences, and he's really great. And he's having one on branded merchandise, and you hear these different things of, well, we don't want billboards, or we don't want branded merchandise, or getting the kids. Well, here's a way you can still contact your consumer right to their phone, and offer them stuff that you don't need to see a billboard. So you can send
Right.
a promotion right to them and saying, hey, we like that you like this vape, here's a 2-for-1 deal, or vice versa. So it's really customizable to you want, and again, in a way, it gives you a way to protect your business
Yeah.
from any potential lawsuits, or anything like that, or again, bad publicity, bad
Right.
news, that you can actually set yourself apart by saying, hey, well, this is the approach we take, again, consumer, um, in really high demand. We take their health, their well-being into consideration, and this is why we wanted to step it up. There's so much
Yeah.
marketing you can do with it, but also it's really the protection I look at, because at the end of the day, it's really about everybody having a great experience with cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you start Sync It? How long ago?
It was about a few years ago. Actually,
Okay.
I had a name different before that, but I was kind of building it and be in that, and then the name Sync It came about a year ago,
Mm.
and just kind of tailoring it to seeing what everything is. Again, the technology was built off already
Hmm.
a platform, GPass. So
Hmm.
it's great being with them, and again, there when you look at it, like I say, it goes back to the casino days when you were saying, "Well,
Hmm.
hey, did you see anything that kind of may fit or could transfer over?" And yeah, so this is why they went to and looked at the platforms and look at technology and say, well, "What is out there already?" Well, happen to be they already use it in international trade standards. There's already
Mm.
tracking and tracing. Pharmaceuticals do it, consumer goods, again, now you're seeing with contactless payments, with the
Hmm.
pandemic, and everybody's using their phone more and certain things. So, I kind of looked at what's out there and found a great company and partnered with them. And now I can offer this platform into this industry, into Native American tribes in cannabis or hemp in a way that not only drives business, but protects consumers and protects your business.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. How many counterfeits have you spotted so far?
Oh, there's tons. I mean,
Tons? Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's especially with here in California where I'm at, because again, cannabis is legal, but where I'm in a rural part of county of San Diego,
Hmm.
but the neighboring city to us, Escondido, doesn't allow cannabis. We don't have
Mm.
any dispensaries. We have to actually go a few towns over and go to another city to get it. So,
Mm.
but when we look at here and you look at weed maps or anywhere else, or you hear, word of mouth, it's happening all over the city.
Right.
So I look at it and go, well, nobody's going to go buy retail, turn around and come sell it on the streets. It's not
Hmm.
going to happen. So
Hmm.
when you
Yeah.
hear about it and you see it, there's a lot of it happening. And now with the opiate crisis here, especially here in San Diego, we have had a lot of the counterfeit opiates
Mm.
that are fentanyl laced. So again,
Mm.
here's a way that you can utilize like this technology, so people don't have to experience that. If again it would be on pharmaceuticals, then you would know. Again, you can't help somebody going to the black market, but
Right.
it's if you kind of go there, you know what you're getting. But again, when you look at um, the cannabis industry, again, the state finally did it by placing QR codes, on their license, and
Yeah.
you can kind of verify it. But at the same time, it's like, wow, if I would copy that paper license, what my technology does is it actually will authenticate that license, not just scan it and go,
Oh.
okay, you can verify the address and the name and all this.
Hmm.
Well, anybody can really do that with any simple QR code, and you
Hmm.
can get a PDF and create and produce your own address and what you want. So when you scan it, you're just going to see the address and the name, and you're going to go, oh,
Right.
okay, it's legitimate, but it's
Yeah.
not tied back where the state could actually say, here is the QR code. And again, to the naked eye, it looks like any other QR code, but it's really a serialized QR code. So that way, that
Mm.
it's the state has a way to authenticate that license in that area. And again, we can do geofencing and all other things in the platform that are very unique and exciting to get out. And that's why I can't wait till we're working with a few companies right now that will be releasing pretty soon, and it'll be a pretty exciting time for us.
That's awesome, man. That is such a, again, a useful tool that I think would really, really help so many people out there, just to make sure that the products that they're getting are legitimate and are responsibly made and are tested and regulated correctly. So that is super cool. That's a really awesome tool. In shifting and talking about bridging the gap between tribal communities and the state and federal governments. Uh, Sadly, when it comes to Native American tribal affairs in this country, the federal government more often than not doesn't provide ample support at the least and actively suppress it or actively oppresses at the most. That's of course, the story of much of American history since the colonizers showed up. In 2018, the Farm Bill gave, like you mentioned, the over 573 tribal nations the same rights to regulate hemp as the 50 states. Since then, how would you describe the role that the federal government has played since then?
They haven't played much of a role.
Yeah.
Somewhat they have, and I always say we can appreciate them actually including tribes in the Farm Bill, and
Mm-hmm.
that's always been the kind of discussions. And since gaming is tribes like us, there's just in California there's over 500 or 110 tribes in
Mm-hmm.
California, just in this one state.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you look at it, you go, well, it's kind of a state within a state. So there's always been the argument of, well, who has jurisdiction, and you're not, because you reside within the state of California, but it's
Mm-hmm.
federal land, and so forth. And so it was kind of nice to finally see that they added, us as equals. If you're a state or tribe, this is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that kind of paved the way when we saw that, and it was like, okay, great. Why I say they haven't had much is because I've had talks with tribes where a lot of are looking at hemp because again it is legal, and it's looking like a more of a lucrative opportunity for tribes than cannabis. It's not really federally legal. Um,
Right.
but when they put these out, a lot of tribes got their hemp bill plan, and I was just recently talking to one tribe that was looking at hemp,
Mm-hmm.
and again, being a regulator looking at it, this was just my thought, because again, the way I look at everything was, can I cheat the system? How can I circumvent it?
Sure.
And if you can look at it like that, then you'll know how to do it, and then you can go back in and go, okay, how can we now we can prevent against this? This is how you could possibly
Right.
do it. And
Right.
that's what we kind of did in gaming. And how can they cheat this? So that's why everybody clears their hands, so you don't go to your pocket and so forth. So one of
Mm-hmm.
the requirements was, because again, I asked a few growers and people was like, hey, how did they, when they do hemp testing, as it says here, they're going to come through, take a couple snips, a couple plants,
Mm-hmm.
various locations,
Mm-hmm.
send it off to a lab. Yeah. Just, just this thought.
Hmm.
What if I threw that? Well, first question I said is, what did they tell you to put it in? What container? You know,
Mm-hmm.
once you snip it, did they have an approved USDA package or something? And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, no, actually, when we asked that question, they said, put it in a brown paper sack and write
Huh.
your lot number and what farm it is and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you got to be serious. You're kidding me. Really? I'm like, it was just like, because we've been dealing with cannabis for so long. It's like, track and trace this, and you better,
Right.
it's like highly regulated. So we're kind of going, really? And I'm like, just a thought. I go, okay, which is fine if that's what they want.
A
But my
paper bag?
question, yeah, and I go, but my question is, if I threw it in this paper bag and the guy takes it and is happened to sit in Palm Springs or El Centro where it's 115 degrees right now,
Right.
would it possibly, is there a possibility where it could cure supposedly and heighten the THC, and therefore when
Mm-hmm.
they test it, it could be higher and considered hot hemp?
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it could be. And you get various answers. Well, depending on what genetics and such and such. And I said, yes, but could be a possibility, correct? Yeah.
Right.
Well, do you want to take that possibility when you have thousands of acres or a lot of time, money invested in it? And what if you found out it wasn't? So my thing was, well,
Wow.
that's where I say that they're not really involved, because they said they were going to have consultation with tribes. And when they requested consultation of, hey, how do we do this? It was like, well, they didn't really have an answer. It was like, oh, we haven't got to it yet and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, when are we going to get to it? Because,
Yeah.
this industry is ready to rock and roll. We're ready to start doing it. So this is where, again, taking the consulting part and my technology
Uh-huh.
is consulting with tribes and saying, well, since we're like our own state, we have to develop our own standards. Well, let's develop a standard for this.
Mm.
What is the industry saying? Let's talk to growers. Let's talk to the experts. Let's all get together and try to say, what is an approved package or container that we can put this hemp in. And then that's where my technology comes in, where we can actually put a security tape seal over it that actually now seals the container. Once you scan it, it's showing that it left our facility wherever it arrived. Well, if they scan it, now we'll better see in the system the date, time, and when it arrived and who received it. So now
That
we'll have that, and then
yeah,
therefrom, you'll have more data and more information and go, okay, well, why did why did it take 2 days when you're only down the street, or
right.
why at this date, time, and again, that way it gives that nobody will, you can't tamper with it. It's a way to authenticate it again that you're getting a legitimate sample. Again, with that, with the USDA, one of the requirements was GPS coordinates of the field.
Mm.
Well, when you look at tribal reservations, it's a huge plot of land.
Mhm.
It's not divided up like a city where oh, this lot is this lot. It's just one huge piece of land. So some tribes have thousands and thousands of acres, and you're going, okay, well, there's no surveying. We're not a city, so how do we plot this out? How are we saying that in this area? Well,
Mm.
again, there's GPS coordinates. That's where our technology comes in on the track and trace side, and now we can implement on that field, have a QR code that is directed to that GPS coordinates of that field. So when that inspector comes in to do the testing from USDA, they can actually scan this code, pull up the information that this is your license, you are licensed, this is the correct field, this is the strain that they're growing here, and the relative information. And then from there, you already know that the inspector's on site, they do their cutting, seal it up, then you know how long it took, and it's done, ship it off, and then everybody's good. So that's why I say, when you say how much are they involved on our side, I haven't felt that they're really involved.
Right.
And that's what we're looking for, is just, hey, we're wanting to jump in this opportunity, and we're really wanting to work with all parties to make this successful for everybody.
Mhm. So can you please bring something other than a paper bag when you collect my cuttings? That'd be nice.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we're saying, we're not trying to, bash anybody. We're just saying, hey,
Yeah, sure.
we have some ideas and we have some things that we're implementing. But if we work
Mhm.
together, then hey, maybe you might see something, or again, you might see another thing that we can all come together and say, okay, this is how we're going to work. Because at the end of the day,
Right.
like we say, we don't want to have a crop destroyed. That's
Mhm.
impacted to us. Again, they don't want the bad publicity of what if that did happen. It'd be like, well, USDA gave me hot hemp. They didn't test it right, or just these different things. Like we say, it goes back to bad information travels faster than good, and we
Right.
really want to, again, like I say with Sync It, that's why everybody's on their phone. That's what we want to push. We want to try to push the good information so everybody gets the right information and the good information, and
Mhm.
make it fruitful for all in every
Yeah,
part of the industry.
absolutely. And that's so crucial, and yeah, that's essential work to be doing. Um so going further on the idea that, the government bodies aren't really doing, they're not really meeting you halfway or even a third of the way, to be honest. Um, you founded the California Native American Cannabis Association, which I understand you're no longer associated with, but you did found it. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
that stemmed back again from gaming, because we have our own gaming associations,
Mm,
that
mm-hmm,
tribes, put together. And
mm-hmm.
again, when we were going through gaming, it was so new. Just like now, going, well, I can't go to USD or Harvard and say, yeah, I have a master's degree or PhD in growing cannabis or hemp. It's like or regulating cannabis. It's not there. So
Right,
this is how we developed our own, certifying our own commissioners and going through our own training that pertained to us. So that's
right,
kind of where I got the idea, and knowing from that. So it first started trying to launch the National Native American Cannabis Association, and that's where getting all tribes together to say, hey, let's create a standard for all tribes, because again, a lot of tribes are saying, hey, how do we get into this industry?
mm-hmm,
So it was a way to to say, hey, let's come together and develop some standards. Again, every state, every tribe is unique to their own, but we can all agree on a standard that everybody has to meet. Like
Mm.
childproof packaging, we all can say we all agree, no matter where you are at, that we don't want children getting this, and we want them to be safe. It's
Right.
like, yeah, we can all agree on that. So why not make it a standard? So when a tribe says, yeah, I decided to get into this industry, well, you have a resource to go to, and you don't have to try to go,
Yeah.
well, hey, what do I put in there? Do I put child resistant? Do I put tamper proof? What language do I put to make it correct? Again, there was these, with track and trace, or is it seed to sale?
Hmm.
What language do you put when you're crafting regulations, because it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So um, that's where it's just kind of where I go back to, gaming and everything. Where did we leave off, and where did we come up with different standards? And um, from that is when it happened in California. Prop 64 passed. It because it's a state law, it would not include tribes. So I understood that, but
Mm-hmm.
when the tribe started to approach the state and started saying, "Hey, what is going on here?" Well, the governor, well, there's no provision for tribes, so it doesn't really have to deal with us. And we were trying to say, well, we kind of built this relationship. What I thought was, for the last 35 years, we've had gaming and compacts with the state of California, working through this. So again, we've kind of built that relationship, we thought, with the state, and going, okay, well, there's an opportunity. How can we all work together? Well, there were some of the regulations that were passed where tribes couldn't be involved in the cannabis industry.
Mm.
So we started coming together and um, talking with other tribal leaders and different things. It was like, hey, how do we do this? And I said, well, we can, I came up with the name California, Native American Cannabis Association, which is
Yeah.
CNACA, and started doing that. And it was really formed for tribes, getting tribes together. Because again, I'm an individual, so I can't speak on behalf of the tribes and say, hey, this is what they want, unless I'm appointed. But it was
Right.
a way for tribes, like a bunch of states, to get together and say, hey, you know, what can we do together, and formed it. And once, got it going, it's had the first meeting in Sacramento, and we got a bunch of tribes together and kind of told them the idea and what we were pursuing. That's how it kind of just formed. And they kind of, formed a board and set it all up. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, I just kind of, wasn't involved and kind of started developing the technology. And again, I was doing a lot of other things. So
Mm-hmm.
once that kind of, they left and did their own thing. And I just been doing the consulting ever since, and still trying to push the standards of getting tribes to say, hey, let's come together, all together to create the standard of regulations. But
Yeah.
again, with over 500 unique ones, it's hard to try to reach the masses, and
Sure.
what
Yeah.
pertains. And again, there's some states that aren't legal in cannabis, but this is where I'm focusing on hemp. Going, okay, yeah, cannabis is, I guess, lucrative if it works out like California and some of these other ones where you could do it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of tribes that in states that aren't approving any cannabis. So it's like, do you really want to go down that road? Versus here is a great opportunity in hemp that is federally legal, and
Right.
you have the opportunity to do it. And but then again, even with this, again, tribes have called and said, well, hey, once we got the hemp plan approved, now they're saying we have to develop regulations. It's like, yes, again, there's different procedures. So that's why now I'm focusing on hemp and getting some standards, and working with the other companies and lawyers, and again, working with my technology and showing them that, hey, there's different ways we can develop this standard. um,
Mm.
I also have my own hemp farm too. We're starting a, small, we're small Native American hemp farmers. That we
Nice.
have other people that, they're growers, and I'm working with them on a small scale to say, this is how you can grow.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing organically. This is where I'm going and tagging all the plants and showing them. Again, that's where I just step it up, because when you look at USDA, they don't require you to track and trace and tag every plant like cannabis. It's
Mm.
similar to that, but really I'm using it more for the testing, because you see a lot of articles of hot hemp, and it's kind
Yeah.
of like that. What if it's just that one plant? that did, do we really want to destroy the whole crop, as they're saying? And it's like, that's a lot of time, money, and effort put into it, blood, sweat, and tears. And it's like, but if there was a way where the inspector would come in, and if you're going to clip this plant, it has a tag, you scan it, you clip it, then okay, these are the plants in these areas of the field that were, tagged. Again, we're not talking, 10,000 acres, and some of these ones. This is more for, small individual farmers,
Mm-hmm.
because again, tribes, we could do it ourselves as a nation, but then there's some that are taking the approach and looking at it different. Like
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to, like you said, the leasing of land. While there's some tribes that are looking at a different opportunity by saying, hey, since the tribe can do it, we can issue a license to our own members, and now they can become small hemp farmers, and you can grow your crop, and
Oh,
and then therefore you're selling it back to the tribal government, because we're a
yeah.
government as a tribe, but we're
Yeah.
still each individual citizens of our nation. So this way it allows small individual farmers where you can grow your crop, sell it to the government of the tribe, and they can process, manufacture, do different things. Again, tribes can use hemp to build their own housing, because
Hmm.
housing is really, we don't get normal loans, housing loans on reservations.
Right.
So, but here's a way that if you grew your own, you can actually grow your own home. You can provide food. So there's different opportunities and uniqueness with every tribe. There's some that are taking that approach, and I thought that was pretty neat. That you're doing small scale farming, for your own people, rather than the government taking it and saying, well, we're going to do it all, we're going to
Yeah.
grow, and you could just work for us. Some are taking that approach, which is fine, and it works for them. But that's why I say let's just all come together, because there's different aspects, there's different uniqueness, there's different things that some don't think about and go, why, I didn't think about doing small individual farmers. Is
Right.
it even feasible? It's like, well, maybe so. Like for my tribe, for instance, we're not a large land base. We're very checkerboarded.
Mm.
A lot is, we already have houses on it. Some of it is on the side of the hill. So
Mm.
there's like little lots of land, but I thought, well, that would be maybe a nice, unique way for a smaller tribe like myself that can do individual little farms, and maybe
Yeah.
sell to a big processing tribe that can. And that's where we bridge the gap of saying, hey, well, let's help nation to nation.
That's what's up. Now, I understand that since 2018, several tribes have submitted plans to obtain approval from the USDA to produce hemp. Is your tribe? Do you intend on submitting a plan to the USDA, and why or why not?
Not my tribe specifically. I would say, why not is, there's still a lot of education that needs to happen within that.
Mm, sure,
Just
sure,
as
sure.
far as the even in the cannabis industry, you still get people that really don't understand what it is. Even with hemp now, I mean, we're
Yeah.
starting to see what they're calling the smokable hemp. It's like, how do you distinguish the two?
Mm,
So there's a lot of education in it, and same thing with tribes. That, again, because on the reservation we have a lot of different things that impact the community. There's a lot of alcoholism, drug
mm-hmm.
abuse. There's murdered and missing Indigenous women. There's a lot of things that, again, as a people, we have to take in effect of how it affects the community.
Of course.
And with the lack of education, again, and what I could say for myself, growing up, in the 80s and 90s, it was, the DARE program out here. And it was like, again, it was pushed upon. And like we say, the stigma that it was bad, it's a drug. So there's still a lot of that within the Indigenous community that we're trying to break down is, let's throw out what you did know, and now let's inform you with some real science and real information. Because again, some of them see it as, well, you just want to bring another problem here, another drug, when we already have all these other issues we have to deal with.
Yeah.
So for my tribe, it's like a lot of us are elders. A lot of the tribal members there are elders. So they come
Got it.
from that era of, no, it's bad, it's a drug, it's a gateway drug.
Mm-hmm.
Again, who are you really listening to when you're coming as a millennial or someone younger? It's like, yeah, we know what you guys want. And it's like, no, no. So, I'm just trying to do the education on it. And
Totally.
hopefully one day, when they do, they have a resource like myself, because I am a tribal member there, that you can rely on, and get the right information and not get taken advantage of. And we can move forward in a way that works best for us and for everybody. because again, the reservations are in small towns that aren't tribal. So again, like I
Uh-huh.
tell them, we have to look at a community as a whole. How does it impact us? Maybe we can create new jobs for not only our community but outside of our community. How do we do this as a whole? It's kind of my approach.
Absolutely. Yeah. And your focus on education is so admirable and so great to do, that you've made it your personal mission to spread this good word of the benefits that hemp can bring to your communities and to your tribe. And like you said, it is a very much still to this day an uphill battle when you're speaking to people maybe of an older generation who uh, came up at a time where the image of hemp and cannabis was viewed very differently than it is today. And yeah, so continuing to spread that education is such an important undertaking to take upon yourself.
Yeah, most definitely it is. Yeah, even now, even in this, would look at California as say established, but it's still, again, like you say, infancy, but
Mm-hmm,
established in the
mm-hmm,
sense that people are making products or selling it, you know where to go,
mm-hmm,
all these different things. But I have a few friends that are actually in there making different products, and that's where I was developing the technology and working with them and saying, hey, what is your problem like here? And one of them, again, yes, you can use it for authentication if you're a brand that has, as like we said, Kingpin and the ones that have
mm-hmm.
actually have been counterfeited and it's publicly known. Versus one, he's a smaller brand, but he's a very unique brand that not many people would counterfeit. It's, he has very unique coffees and teas and
Hmm.
stuff he's doing that, is vegan and organic. So it's kind of that little niche craft. And I look at it and go, well, okay, you're not really pertaining to counterfeit. You don't, that's
Right.
not really your issue. What is your issue as a business? And it's like, well, to get the word out that, how do we educate people on dosing?
Yes,
Again, because
yes.
when you see it, you're like, okay, 10 milligrams, like, is that enough? And some of these
Yeah.
drinks, you sip and you go, okay, it says 10 milligrams. Like, that really wet my lips. Like, is that enough? Is it enough? How do you use
Yeah,
it? How are you supposed to feel? Different things. So, and he
yeah,
goes, yeah, well, that's kind of my problem. And I go, okay, well, that's education. And again, like you said, being in the education of trying to push it and get the right information, that's where
yes.
I showed him, well, you can utilize the technology that instead of scanning it and it shows, hey, your product's legitimate, we can, but what it does too is now pops up a video. So now you can interact with your consumers and have them, push it on social media, scan this code, and now you can go to this video and learn about it, and you can talk to them and get the right information of, hey, thanks for buying my product, or this is how you dose. Yes, if you
Mhm.
take a little bit, it might feel that your lips are a little wet, but
Hmm.
it is, it did into your body and so forth. There's so much you can do with it. As That's just one example of how one company is using it for education
Mm.
versus, authentication, or versus saying that, a big issue with ingredients is lab report, or maybe
Mm.
you have it all covered and you're just going, hey, I want to, use it for something else. So
Yeah.
that's why it's very customizable. We don't have like a set, like, hey, this is what it is. It's really sitting down with the client and saying, what is unique to you? What is it your issues are?
Right.
And that we have a solution that we provide to uh, help you move forward. It's education, and that's where Tribe is trying to do the same thing. Is by showing them hemp. Like, see, you can buy hemp hearts. Hemp oil.
Mm-hmm.
These are the
Mm-hmm.
things, because they don't really see it until you show them that you can buy it in the local grocery stores and stuff. And when they see it, it's like, oh, this is what you're talking about. It's like, yes,
Right.
it is.
Ah.
So it's like, oh, and again, like you say, with that older generation, if you don't really understand it, or show them. So I've done
Right.
community educations, for tribal nations, even across the country, who've gone in and with whole tribes sitting there and brought in products, to actually show them. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, us as humans, we learn more by sight, feel, touch. It's like, look
Right.
at it and, here, look at, smell this. This is the hemp flower, look at, you can build products,
Yeah.
hemp hearts, good for you, cooking oil, there's clothing, there's so much things. And when I felt that that's really the key in education, is when you can see it, feel it, and, then just hearing about it. Cause then it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's what the last guy said. He grew the best weed in the world. And it's like, how do you know until they actually show you, show you a farm? That's
Right.
why I tell them too, is, to verify too, if they're a grower, hey, you have
Right.
a farm? Yeah. Okay. Show me, take me. We want to visit your farm.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, man, that education again is so important. And like you said, everyone has such unique needs, and they're looking for assistance in all different aspects, and everyone has their own goals and their own obstacles. And you acting as a resource and creating these resources for consumers, patients, and companies and communities in general is such great work. And so, speaking of that education, before we go here, where can people find the work that you're doing? Where can people find the work that Syncit is doing, and any other resources that you would like for them to have at their fingertips?
Yeah, you can go on, my website, syncit.net. You
Mm-hmm.
can go on there, and that's, right to the company. And we're updating our website and, getting stuff. But in there, you can see some of the information we're doing, get us contact there. We're on, a LinkedIn, as myself,
Mm-hmm.
under Blue Quisquis. You can go to Instagram under Sync Innovation there. Yeah, and just, reach out. Again, it's like we're trying to, get the word out. But again, I'm not a big, guess you could say, social media person. I'm not, always on there and posting stuff. So when I do, I try to get the information out. But that's where, I'm looking for help and from the community and from, other advocates and people, is, let's try to push the right information and the good word, and, and circulate that. And again, I always say I'm an open book. Anybody can call me. People call me, for quick questions. But yeah, if they want to talk, just go on our website, syncit.net, and shoot us a email over, and we'll get back to you right away.
That's awesome, man. I love that you're spreading that good word. We definitely need as many helpful people like you in this community, and in this industry, and in the world in general, man. And I thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to sit down and have this conversation with me. I really appreciate your perspective and the work that you're doing, man.
Oh yeah, likewise, and thank you for reaching out. And yeah, maybe we can be in the future again. It was a great conversation, and again, likewise, I like what you guys are doing, and love the show. Hash it out. It's kind
Yeah,
of fits perfect. And like you said, with everything that's going on with either tribes or anybody else, it's like, let's sit down and hash it out, and it's great. So yeah, maybe we can have further conversations, and love to stay up to date with you, and
yeah,
help spread the good word. Appreciate it.
absolutely, man. I'll be keeping an eye on it. And yeah, I hope you continue to stay well, and I hope you continue to stay safe in San Diego. I wish you, your friends, your family, your tribe all the best, and hopefully we'll be able to see each other soon. That'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Likewise.
My thanks again to Blue Quisquis for joining me. If you are a member of the cannabis community and have a story you want to share with us, we would love to hear from you. You can reach the show at hashitout@trichomes.com. You can help others find the show by taking a moment to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. You can also join the discussion with industry insiders and get your voice heard by joining the community at trichomes.com and following us on all social media. Hash It Out is produced by David Fortin and presented by trichomes.com. I'm RJ Balde. Thanks for listening.